So Arsenal had their AGM on Monday night, apparently, and there's something that's supposedly going to be getting floated, and it's this idea that Arsenal should look to
Just sounds wrong, doesn't it?
ban season ticket holders who don't turn up for football matches. Now, there was an article that came out, I think, at the weekend, saying that the figures that Arsenal say are in attendance of the game are based on ticket sales, not people going through the turnstiles. Now, I think there was something
That's like an opposite to how it used to work, isn't it?
Yeah, there was something from Man United about a year ago that came out along this, and apparently a lot of football clubs, this is how vast majority of football clubs do it, because we all know situations of people who literally, for whatever reason, can't turn up, but they pre-bought the ticket, but don't hand it on to someone else. Breathe. But do you think a club, let's use Arsenal as the example because it's what's been mentioned, Flav, could and should go as far as to ban people or remove the season ticket privileges from people who don't go to games?
It's a difficult one because on one hand there's many people waiting for these season tickets, and if someone isn't using them properly, they can afford just to not go and it doesn't bother them. Then you kind of get a blockage on the amount of season tickets that are being passed on to the waiting list. And in that instance, you think, well, there must be some sort of fair usage policy or a minimum usage policy. You can understand that. But this isn't a case, by the same token, these people get chastised for passing by clubs and say it's not in the terms and conditions. You're not allowed to hand over your season ticket holders to your brothers or your mates. You're not allowed to do that. So on one hand, you're being told, don't do that. On the other hand, you're saying, well, you've got a season ticket, you have to be turning up every week. And I think with Arsenal and their fan base, the vast majority of them, a certain section of their fan base is of the wealthier bracket. You can tell that because there's absolutely no atmosphere at that stadium. but
only a matter of time.
So if someone can afford to get a season ticket and not turn up, maybe they don't deserve it. I don't know.
Yeah. I think there needs to be more. I think that's a lot of what you mentioned earlier. Is a big part of it, is that clubs aren't comfortable, Ped, with the idea of anyone other than the guy whose name is on that season ticket being sat in that seat for any reason. Although they do offer ticket exchange programs where you can hand it back for money or whatever.
But I think that could be a major part of it. Like the trade unionist or the socialist in me should be outraged by this. But I can understand why clubs might be looking at it differently now, because we are getting that secondary ticket market as well now, where you might find one of these StubHub or whoever might buy a season ticket themselves and then might sell it on a game-to-game basis. And if they can't get rid of those tickets because they put them out there for a ridiculous price, I mean, you think about it, they only have to sell one ticket, Tottenham v Arsenal, for $2,000, and they've made their season. So the club have got to watch out for that and keep an eye. And that is becoming more and more. There's an Everton ticket going next week for the West Ham game for like £1,500. Who the fuck could pay £1,500 to watch Everton versus West Ham? The absolute idiots.
So Spurs struck up a deal with StubHub.
Yeah, right? We've got one. It's an absolute joke.
But what happened was, because we campaigned, a lot of the Sports Trust campaign, there's a lot of noise going on. They've actually managed to get that cap down to £125.
Yeah, I think ours is.
Yeah, so the maximum you can do it now. There's still every ticket
it's still a disgrace.
It is, yeah. The other issue with that is at Tottenham, where it doesn't exist at Arsenal, is that secondary. It's ticket touting, legalised ticket touting. Is exactly what it is, right? And so that you don't have the issue of seats going unfilled, because season ticket holders can make money out of other fans by selling to them.
But the other idea is, going back to what you've just said, just someone hoarding a ticket, just being rich enough to have a season ticket and just go, oh, I'll just go then, or again, a business owning one and just saying, oh, I've got a client in town.
What's the alternative for the club? Is there a case of 3 strikes and you're out?
Well, just keep it. I mean, I don't know how Arsenal were doing it. I don't know how Man United did it for that fan. That seemed a little bit over the top when they did it, for not buying one cup ticket or something. But
sorry, just for those who don't know what that story was.
I think it was a Man United banned the season ticket holder because
he was supposed to go away to Hull,
and
he got ill the night before. And United had the policy of you have got to go actually to the club and pick up your ticket in person before going to the game, which I think is a bit balmy to begin with. But anyway, and he couldn't go. Yeah, he couldn't go because he was sick.
So I'm sure the clubs have ways of monitoring this and keeping an eye on it, and who's going and who isn't going. But if there are people who are just hoarding season tickets, then take them away from them.
Yeah, I agree. I think the whole thing needs to be thought through a bit more, because there's a lack of transparency on every end of it, because there's so much duplicity that goes into all of it. And now, even for like a fan's end, how many people have season tickets than aren't their season tickets. You know what I mean? And so that becomes that there's an issue with it. I think ultimately what we're boiling down to is that it is, if you've bought a season ticket and you go to one game and that sits empty for the other 37, then take that season ticket off and give it to someone who actually wants to go.
But what's the cut-off point though?
Well, that's what I mean. Maybe there's some sort of like, if you look at like the, what was it, like the non-EU player rule where you had to play in a certain percentage of games to have it renewed.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Maybe that's it. You've got to appear in more than 75% of games to be eligible.
I think you just need to. There doesn't need to be a rule. I mean, this issue will probably be so few that you could do it by case basis. If there's 100, if this thing at Arsenal, if this is more than a couple of hundred tickets, I'd be surprised. I mean, when they say there is a bit of a joke saying that Arsenal have been at capacity when. Most of the time, you say certainly the smaller games, they're not at capacity because of the reason we mentioned.
It's like
before.
City. Look at the Etihad's
It's the same everywhere. I don't get what they get out of saying that they're at capacity every single game when you can see that it isn't on the telly.
The money's been spent though, hasn't it? If it's been spent and the ticket's been bought, then it is a capacity. To be honest, I'm glad clubs are keeping an eye on it because, as I said, there is on the surface of it, it makes a great headline. Fan loses season ticket over thing. But sometimes in these stories, when you delve a little bit deeper and you start looking at the intricacies of it, sometimes there can be more. I mean, my missus used to work on the turnstiles at Anfield, and not picking this out because it's Liverpool, but she said people towards the end of the season used to come through with full books of season tickets. No one had used them all season. It does happen. I don't know about yous, but there's always that odd seat at the ground. You go, no one ever sits there, or it does need to be monitored, especially with this. If you sit at the back and there's no one around you.
Go ahead.
It does need to...
It'd be devastating to your point for me to pick up on it, so I'll leave it.
It does need to be... I hope it is monitored because this secondary ticket market is getting worse and worse, I feel, and it does need to be monitored. We can cut that off and make sure it's real fans who own the tickets go in the game, then the better.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay.
But surely by that point, what happens to the fans that like the likes of Liverpool or Man United, or I know to a certain extent Tottenham, who come from far and wide to go to the game and can't get a ticket beforehand? Surely there should be an excess. It's not really tough shit, is it?
It is tough shit.
Why is it?
Well, if you travel all that way,
if you don't have a season ticket, that's like saying if you don't have a season ticket, why you shouldn't be going to the game?
I'm not saying shouldn't be able to pass I'm not saying you shouldn't be able to pass your ticket on. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying that if there are organisations who have bought season tickets and are using them on a game-to-game basis, as I say, you only have to sell one ticket for one major game.
As we said, look, there's two things, isn't there? And this was made. A point was made in the article about this. Is that two things? Well and good, you've sold your ticket, so you've ticked that box. You've made the most you're going to make out of that as a club because you're not benefiting from the touting price or whatever. So that's fine. You don't care about that, but having an extra person or an extra few hundred people every single week who come in and maybe buy a programme, a pie and a pint or whatever, that's where the money's made in football games anyway, isn't it? And as well is that in terms of just having more people who actually want to go to the game and make some noise, which is something that the Emirates, let's face it, could use with a few more off. I'm so sorry. All football grounds could, not just you Arsenal fans.
Especially though.
And your hollow bowl.
At least their manager doesn't have to stand up and ask the fans to make more noise.
Can't say it's terrible, isn't it? Your manager left the under-23s game with 15 minutes to go.
That
and
happens all the time.
Does it?
Of course it does.
Does he do that all the time?
I don't think he actually goes and watches our under-23. I don't think. I'll be honest. I don't think our manager gives a fuck.
He was there at the on Sunday.
Sylvester Stallone left with 10 minutes to go. One of our games. It happens, doesn't it?
Fucking takes him. The best Stallone's got a season ticket, hasn't he?
They see what they want to see, and then they get off, don't they?
Not a Goodison Park, mate. Anyway, let us know your thoughts on that. Should something be done? Should we see fans getting banned or having their season tickets stripped from them if they don't attend enough games? Let us know in the comments below.